By the mid-1st century BC, Europe was still a wild frontier to the Romans. North of the Alps lay a vast land which they called Gallia, stretching from the Atlantic Ocean to the Rhine River. It was home to dozens of warrior tribes who spoke Celtic languages and had never bowed to power from the south. In the south, Rome was entering a time of turmoil. Political ambition, internal conflict, and figures like Pompey, Crassus, and Caesar, men who sought not only glory, but to etch their names into history. In 58 BC, Julius Caesar, governor of Gallia Cisalpina and Gallia Narbonensis, began his campaign to conquer all of Gaul. With tacit approval from the Senate and a clear political objective, he marched his legions northward. Within a few years, Caesar crushed the Helvetii, defeated Ariovistus's Germanic coalition, and smashed the Belgae tribes. Step by step, battle by battle, he conquered a land larger than Italy itself, but the war was not over. The Gauls still resisted. Gaul was not a nation. It was a fragmented mosaic of over 60 tribes, each with its own customs, language, and leaders. They fought each other more often than they formed alliances. But then, from the ashes of chaos, one man emerged, Vercingetorix. In the cold mists of central Gaul in 52 BC, a young man from the Arverni tribe dared to rise against Rome. His name was Vercingetorix, a name that, before long, even Caesar would never forget. Vercingetorix did not begin with a crown. When he called for resistance against Rome, even his own people saw it as suicide. They expelled him from Gergovia. But he did not give up. He rode through villages, forests, and hills, calling upon every warrior, every chieftain, and one by one they answered. For the first time in generations, the Gauls stood united, from the Arverni to the Carnutes, from the Bituriges to the Parisii. More than 50 tribes allied under a single banner. A long-haired warrior on horseback wore paint on his face, swearing never to bow to Rome. Vercingetorix was not only brave, he was a strategist. Knowing he could not defeat the battle-hardened Roman legions head-on, he chose a different path: scorched earth resistance. The Gauls destroyed their crops, burned their own villages, and severed every supply line the Romans might use. Tens of thousands of Roman soldiers suffered. They starved, exhausted, harassed by ambushes at every turn. In the shadows of Gaul's deep forests, the empire that once knew no defeat began to waver. And then at the city of Gergovia, the very place that had once cast him out, Vercingetorix won a resounding victory. For the first time in the campaign, Caesar was defeated. He was forced to retreat, losing thousands of men. The Gauls rejoiced. They believed the final victory was near. But Vercingetorix did not yet realize he had done the most dangerous thing of all, cornered a lion like Caesar. Summer 52 BC. After the defeat at Gergovia, Caesar did not retreat to Italy. Instead, he marched north, striking deep into Vercingetorix's rear, giving the Gauls no time to regroup. Vercingetorix chose Alesia, a natural fortress atop a hill surrounded by rivers and valleys, a place that seemed impossible to conquer. At Alesia, around 80,000 people, soldiers and civilians, prepared for a siege. They believed the stronghold would hold Caesar off until reinforcements arrived. But Caesar didn't attack. He chose a strategy so bold it bordered on madness: to build a massive ring of fortifications completely encircling Alesia. Under Caesar's orders, more than 50,000 Roman soldiers worked day and night. They dug 2 deep trenches, built a wall of wood and earth over 4 meters high, and laid iron traps, spike pits, and thorn fences, a defensive system unlike anything seen before. The total length of the inner fortification line, 15 kilometers. But Caesar wasn't finished. Fearing reinforcements from other Gallic tribes, he ordered a second wall to be built, this time facing outward, surrounding the entire Roman army. One wall to contain the enemy inside, another to repel the enemy outside, two walls, a double encirclement. Caesar, with fewer than 60,000 men, chose to trap himself between 80,000 Gauls inside the fortress and hundreds of thousands of reinforcements outside. A gamble only a genius or a madman would dare to take. Inside Alesia, famine began. Vercingetorix forbade reckless breakout attempts, knowing Caesar had set a trap. Instead, he sent a final messenger pleading for urgent aid from the tribes. And then reinforcements truly came. A massive coalition, possibly up to 250,000 strong, according to Caesar, marched to the hills around Alesia. They were ready for the decisive battle that would determine the fate of all Gaul. The most complex siege relief battle of the ancient world was about to begin. Caesar and his army were trapped between two blades. September 20th, 52 BC. The Gaulish reinforcements had finally arrived. From the Belgae tribes to the north to the Aquitani warriors in the west, they surged forward like a breaking wave. Over 200,000 strong, they surrounded the second wall of Caesar's encirclement. At the same time, inside Alesia, Vercingetorix and his 80,000 men were ready. In his hands were skilled archers, elite Arverni cavalry, and an indomitable will to resist. Caesar, now like a wolf surrounded, knew that if he failed, his entire campaign to conquer Gaul would collapse. But he was not afraid. He divided his forces into clusters to defend key points. He placed cavalry and javelin throwers on the outer edges, arranged drums, banners, and stone-throwing artillery at positions where they could support each other. The defensive setup was prepared in meticulous detail. At dawn on the 21st, the Gaulish reinforcements began attacking from the east. They charged into traps of spikes, deep pits, and were slaughtered by Roman darts and arrows. The trenches outside the walls were stained red with blood. By afternoon, Vercingetorix signalled. The forces inside the fortress charged out from the bay west, breaking the encirclement. For a moment, Rome was caught between two fronts, but Caesar, cold and calculating, unleashed reserve forces to counterattack, pushing back each assault. The next day, the Gaulish reinforcements changed their tactics. They discovered a weakness to the north. Where the high terrain prevented the Romans from building a solid wall, they attacked fiercely, wave after wave of warriors climbing, shooting, and shouting. As the outer wall was about to break, Caesar himself donned his armor and climbed to the front lines. He threw the full force of his cavalry and elite troops into the battle. The Roman cavalry flanked and struck the Gauls' side as they were climbing the slope. In the chaos, the Gaulish tribes fell apart in pieces. The screams, the clash of metal, the blaring of horns, all merged into a symphony of hell. The reinforcements retreated, shattered, no more hope. Inside the walls of Alesia, Vercingetorix understood everything was over. The Battle of Alesia had ended. The reinforcements fled in chaos. Despair spread across Alesia like a shadow. Vercingetorix, who had once united the fractured Gaulish tribes, now stood alone before his final choice. He summoned his commanders. There was no choice but surrender. But he would not let his people be humiliated. He decided to step forward before the enemy, as a warrior. According to Plutarch, when he reached the Roman command tent, he said nothing. Vercingetorix knelt and bowed his head before Caesar, as a king falls before a future emperor. No words of forgiveness, no smile. Caesar quietly looked at him, then signalled for him to be taken away. Vercingetorix was bound and imprisoned for 6 years in a dungeon in Rome before being executed during Caesar's triumph. With the defeat at Alesia, the dream of a free Gaul officially ended. The tribes were subdued, the resistance shattered. Within a year, the vast land from the English Channel to the Rhine River became part of the Roman Empire. But the victory at Alesia was not just the end for the Gauls, it was also the greatest turning point in Caesar's career. He returned to Rome in a magnificent triumph, with prisoners, spoils, and legends of a conqueror of barbaric lands. His prestige soared to its peak. From a powerful general, Caesar now held a glory unmatched by any. But it was precisely this that made the Senate fearful. A few years later, the very prestige from Alesia would ignite a bloody civil war in Rome. Caesar would cross the Rubicon, declare war on the Senate, and history would take a different turn. Today, Alesia is just ruins, but the battle fought here between a rising empire and a people yearning for freedom still echoes in history as an eternal symbol of tragedy, of victory, and of irreversible choices. If you enjoy these epic stories, these decisive battles that shaped the fate of humanity, don't forget to subscribe and follow our channel. Join us as we continue to explore the secrets and legendary feats in world history. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.